guys, welcome back. We're picking up this time exactly where we left off. And what I'm going to do here now is make sure that my probe is connected to the ground station that we built last episode. And that means now that when we leave the Kerbin system, we won't be unconnected. And I'm going to go prograde so that I'm going to be facing in the right direction, because the problem with this rocket setup that I have at the moment is that it's incredibly bottom heavy. I've got a massive fuel tank at the bottom that's got no RCS on it at all. So yeah, let's just speed up now and hope that the green line stays intact. Obviously it won't when the space center is around the other side of the planet, or if the moon gets in between them, but we should be fine. This is pretty much where it went out last time. Okay, yeah, that's all sorted. And now, as you can see, we are in interplanetary space. The blue line means that we're in orbit around the Sun, and that orbit is inside Kerbin's orbit. So what I'm going to do now is show you what I did with the maneuver nodes to be able to bring myself in towards Eve. The quickest way to do it is to start playing with the retrograde so that you can bring your orbit down to vaguely meet. And as you can see, already there, where the two blue arrows are on the orbit, we have some vague kind of collision or near approach. Problem is the distances here mean that just a littlest adjustment means perhaps 10 million kilometers of change. So you have to be really, really careful, and this process takes a long, long time. The key is to play with one, for in this case the prograde and retrograde, which are the two yellow ones, until you get to the midpoint, and then when you go past that, bring it back, and then start playing with one of the other ones. So I started using the blue ones next, which what they do is they change the position of the circle of the orbit, which basically means that you have the same size of a circle, but it just rolls it on a point around the maneuver node. And then same thing, when the kilometers stop reducing and start increasing again, go back a little bit till you get to the lowest point, and then you can start either playing with the prograde and retrograde again, or if you notice that the orbit is above or below, as you can see, I've just dropped down sideways to see. You can see that the plane of Eve's orbit isn't the same as the Kerbin one, so you can start playing with the purple arrows to bring it in a bit. And a kind of rough and ready kind of thing you can do with that is look on the orbit. There's two markers that show where the points, where the two planes interact with each other, where they intersect. And if you can put that on where the planet itself is, that means that you're going to be at the planet when your plane intersects with their plane. And yeah, this takes a very, very long time. I mean, please, if you've got any questions about this process, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll try and answer every single one of them, because this ended up taking on its own about 25 minutes. So there's probably no way I can just commentate through that. But what I can do is, for a bit of it at least, is talk about the Mariner 2 probe, which is what I didn't do last time. I only talked about the Atlas Agena rocket, which is actually, I think I still have the Agena stage attached. That's the big heavy fuel tank I have at the bottom of the probe at the minute. That's the Agena stage. The Atlas stage was lost in the atmosphere when I jettisoned it. And yeah, so I'm going to spend some of this time talking about Mariner 2, but as you can see, I'm actually getting quite a close intersect there, and it's annoying in the fact that it's all the way around, but the problem is I don't know whether it's just my version of Kerbal Space Program or what, but you have to look at where the planet is at the moment to work out how close you're going to be to it when you actually get an intersect. So as you can see, that's Eve on the screen there, but that's not going to be where I get in touch with Eve. Eve is going to be back where those two blue arrows were on the orbit, which is the complete opposite side. But what you have to do is you have to not look at that, you have to rotate and scroll so you can get Eve in your field of view as well as your maneuver node, and start playing with it there. While all this hubbub is going on, let's have a look at the actual probe, Mariner 2. And yeah, this one, as you can see, looks incredibly like the Ranger series of missions that I've commented on in previous videos, and I showed you, I think, the many failed attempts of the Ranger program trying to get to the moon. It's the same kind of chassis, except it's been fitted with a high gain antenna because it's obviously going out a lot further than just to the moon. And the mission itself took 4 months and 7 days, and it made contact with Venus on December the 14th, 1962. And it managed to go within 35,000 kilometers of the surface of Venus. And yeah, while this didn't have any cameras or it didn't take any direct photos of Venus, it managed to find out a lot of actual useful scientific information that was used by the Soviets when they were planning their landers, which I'm going to do in a future episode. It made basic measurements of the atmosphere, and they already knew that there was thick clouds. You could tell that through telescopes, which is why they didn't take any cameras with them at the time. But later programs would find out that you could find actual detail in the clouds, but that's something that you couldn't work out without having a probe like this go first. You didn't know what you weren't looking for, if that makes sense. And seeing as this was the first probe that went between planets, and remember this is long before even the manned missions to the moon started, they managed to get a lot of detailed readings about the space between the two planets, the actual helio-affected area, the interplanetary magnetic fields. There were some problems with Mariner 1 that was basically a computer glitch, and it was destroyed on launch to stop it being lost. But this one went absolutely smoothly, which was at this point quite rare for the American space program. It also found the temperature difference between the cloud layer on Venus and the extremely hot surface, which we now know is due to lava flows and boiling sulfuric acid and things like that, where the actual clouds, due to the evaporation and the greenhouse effect, meant that it was a lot cooler on top because the clouds were so thick. Yeah, here's also some internal schematics. You can pause it if you want to have a look. It's got all the parts and the experiments involved. The probe itself didn't have any propulsion. It was launched as a dead weight. It had some slight maneuvering capability, I believe, but that was nothing like as what I've got on this, which is full RCS and a propulsion stage. But yeah, let's go back to the video, and I'm about to do my first burn. So yeah, here we go. I'm all lined up, as you can see. I'm pointed at the blue node, and I'm burning now. And because I'm so far away from Kerbin, I'm using the autopilot panel on the left. Yeah, and I've mistimed that terribly. So yeah, put the numbers in correctly, and as you can see on the right, it says what the estimated burn is. I just did a little test burn then because you need to have it running at full throttle to work out the numbers correctly. So I did like a 1 second burn. From that, it can give you the right number. You plug that in, and you fire it when your total amount of burn is halfway each side of the time to maneuver node. So if your burn is 20 seconds, you burn 10 seconds to maneuver node. And I'm getting quite low on fuel on this stage now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decouple with a bit of fuel left in it. And the reason I'm doing this is because the decouple will add speed, and I want that to be taken into account before the burn is finished. Otherwise I'll have to turn around in reverse, and that's a real pain when you're doing it on autopilot. Yeah, you can see at the top on top left, next to the green square, it says how much lag I've got. And that means that when I put a command through, it's going to take that long for it to actually happen on my ship, which isn't that much of a problem, just like outside of Kerbin orbit. But when you get down to being at Eve, it can be 10 minutes, which obviously has a big effect if you're having to do things such as adjusting for atmosphere or anything like that. But there we go, that's the burn pretty much finished, and I've closed it now. In the new patch, you can close it in the ship view. And let's have a look, see where it's actually got me. And I've got an encounter, but it's not exactly as tight as I wanted it to be. And there's several reasons for that. It can be that you had the right amount of acceleration, but you started a little bit late, or many little things. But If it's a tiny amount, you can probably adjust it with RCS, which I'm doing now. But yeah, or the alternative is check your maneuver nodes again, see what you need to do. And even you could even, I think what I'm going to do is check the maneuver node for like retrograde and prograde, and then you can use the RCS H or N on the keyboard when RCS is done, is activated, to get more fine adjustments. And you can even press Control, and that'll give you smaller bursts of RCS to get a much more precise fix. And my objective is to get within 100,000 of Eve, because Mariner 2 in real life was a flyby mission, and that's all I'm hoping for this one to be. There will be upcoming landers. The Americans never sent a lander um, to not Eve. I would have been amazed if NASA went to Eve, but NASA never sent a lander to Venus. It was the Soviets who did that, and they managed to get back the only footage we've ever had from underneath the cloud layer. And you can see something terrible has actually happened here. Because I've gone retrograde, I'm now back inside Kerbin orbit, which has completely screwed everything up. My autopilot's now looking at a different node. Well, what I could do is hope that Kerbin doesn't have too much of an effect on me and just speed through it, and hope that the maneuver node is still pointing in the right place by the time I'm out of Kerbin orbit again. Okay, now I'm probably going to have to make a new maneuver node, because as you can see I'm shooting past it now and I'm still in. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the maneuver node and hope that it's not readjusted stuff. No, it has. It's seeing me as still, the maneuver node is still in orbit around the sun. As you can see, it's on the yellow line, but I'm on the blue line. So yeah, let's cancel that. That's no good to me. But yeah, while this process might take longer in real time than if you launched on the opposite side of Kerbin and just went straight out, what this is actually doing is it's using more fuel to take less time, which is great if you're using mods that have Kerbal life support or similar, because obviously every day they're using up oxygen, food. So if that's a mod you're playing with, then this is a great way to get to Eve. But yeah, as you can hear, I'm doing an actual burn now. I'm using the thrusters with shift. And am I going in the right direction? I am going in the right direction, yes. It's just that Kerbin has pulled me back outwards. It's adjusted where my intersect is going to be. Okay, that didn't do it. I need more. I'm not using maneuver nodes here. I'm just kind of eyeballing the numbers. And there you can see it's gone purple. We have an intersect, but it's still really high. So I'm just going to keep feathering it until I've gone too far. And, you know, just got to hope that I'm on a route now that won't take me back in towards Kerbin, because that would just screw me up twice. But yeah, most of this is just playing with maneuver nodes. It's stuff that you've seen before. So I'm going to skip ahead a bit until we're on our route to Eve. Inside the sphere of influence of Eve. As you can see, that's Eve in the background. We're coming at it from the Kerbin side, so at the minute all you can see is a shadow. It won't give you any indication of actually how amazing it looks. And that's true of obviously the arrangement of the real Venus. You can't see from the back side how it looks. You have to get probes there, which is one of the reasons it was such a target for the early probes, more than perhaps Mars, because telescopes can tell you much more about Mars. And this is me just playing with the inclination and distance to bring it back within inside the 80,000, because that's what I wanted to do. As you can see, my liquid fuel is getting really, really low. So I'm prepared to say I brought the right amount of fuel for this mission for once. And there we go. You can see that the orange orbit, this is where we've come from, Kerbin. The orange line, sorry, is our connection to Kerbin. And based on where it is, I've got about 2 hours of life left to monitor the probe. But what will happen is I'm going to say that I'm taking a reading now. And obviously because I have this game in sandbox, if I take any temperature readings or gravimetric readings, it's not going to give me any response. But I'm going to say that's the study's done properly. I'm still just far away. I'm inside the sphere of influence, but not close enough that any of the experiments will go. So I've got, oh, there we go. One of the gravimetrics came back. Thank you, time delay. Had to wait for 10 minutes for that. But there we go. That's one reading and therefore science. So the mission is successful, technically. And let's transmit that back. So that's the secondary mission, which is to take some data. But the primary mission will be to get within 80,000. It looks like that's done as well. It's just a case of whether that will be done while I still have connection back to the Space Center. See, I'm still is that 3 hours out? I can't really see on my little screen. I'm doing this in post-production. I can't really see, but okay. That's gonna go dark in a second. Hopefully, though, it might ping around. Yeah, I've still got a bit of space. Obviously, as the closer you get to your target, the inverse square law means gravity's increasing you quicker than it is when you're further away, so I'm just going to be speeding up until I get to Eve, which means that I've got less time now to close in than I think I have for Kerbin to rotate. But this probe, as with all other probes, I'm sure can take information, just program it in, and then wait for it to get where it needs to be. There'll be like an altitude rig. When it gets to 90,000, then take the readings. That's what I'm going to say is happening. But we should be able to get our first glimpse of Eve, and this is us seeing it. It's a wonderful purple haze. I'm sure I've heard that somewhere before. A purple haze, and it's a disappointment that there's no camera on this vehicle to send images back to Kerbin, because they would absolutely love it. But yeah, you can see it's thick atmosphere, and this is where I'm starting to wonder whether I'm actually going to be so close that the atmosphere is going to damage my ship, because I've completely forgotten that they don't use the same altitude of 70,000 as they do on Kerbin, which means I might start getting reentry effects. And yeah, there's no way that I'm going to get a connection, but I could gather data, zip out the far side, and I could then send that data back to Kerbin. So yeah, you can see now as we're moving over the surface of Eve that there are actually some features down there. It's not just a gaseous planet, and you can actually see that when you're up close. Or you would be able to if this had a camera, but that wasn't exactly the point of this mission. This mission was, ooh, little semicircle arrangement there. That could either be land or a lake. We just don't know enough about what's underneath the atmosphere to make an educated guess at this point. But yeah, the point of this mission was just to prove that you could get to another planet. Nobody knew at this point that that was even possible. I mean, everybody thought it was possible, otherwise they wouldn't have sent a rocket there in the first place, but you never know. There could have been some kind of invisible wall around the sun that stopped things from happening, which is why that this mission had a lot more instrumentation dedicated to solar activity than actually detecting Venus activity. But yeah, as we start to zoom away now, our altitude is increasing. I'm going to give you a little talk about what I'm doing next episode. Thanks very much to one of the commenters who pointed out I almost missed a mission. The X-15 rocket program, which was used as a first step into high altitude by many of the Apollo astronauts to be. It was going on since before the 1959 launch of Sputnik, which meant that technically it was the first spaceship, even though it didn't go into space until just after Mariner 2, which is this mission here. So thanks for letting me know just in time. I'll be able to do that for next episode. So I'm a bit worried about it. I've never really done planes, and I've especially never done a plane launched from another plane, but that'll be something to watch, I guess. Thanks everyone for checking out this video, and remember to subscribe and like, it helps me out a lot, and if you subscribe, you can watch this video as soon as it's been submitted. Thanks a lot everybody, see you next time.